My good friend Marty has requested that some of his brothers in Jesus make a video response to his recent video, Why I Believe in God, Why I Trust God. Hopefully, this true story and testimony can do this far better than I could. A father's love, a true story of God's love. On the day that I wrote these words down, it was very early in the morning. My loving Heavenly Father brought to my remembrance an event from many, many years ago. Now, I make no claims of being a writer or much given to speaking, but I can only relate this true story as best I can. I was about 21 years of age, been married a couple of years, with two sons. The first we named Kenneth Dean, and the youngest we named Keith Allen. I was in the U.S. Navy and had been sent to Washington, D.C. for schooling on a new computer system, which was about to be installed on the U.S. Saratoga, a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. For the first time in my marriage, I was separated from my wife and my children. I hated being split apart. I was scheduled to attend schooling for a couple of months. This took place so long ago that I can only estimate the dates as best I can. I had been there in Washington, D.C. for only a few weeks when I received a phone call from my wife in California saying that our youngest son Keith was in Stanford University Hospital with double pneumonia and was not expected to live until the next day. Because it was after hours, around 6 p.m. as I remember, I could not leave for California until the next morning. Now, to attempt to describe the agony and torment and helplessness that I felt is beyond my ability to put into words. Let it suffice to say that I was tormented beyond anything I had previously even thought possible. Minutes became like hours, and the seconds ticked by so slowly that it seemed like it was one tick forward and two ticks back. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, it was time for lights out. That was at 10 p.m., and I still had until 8 a.m. before the personnel office would be open to obtain the necessary paperwork. There was only darkness, and I had no idea of how much time had passed. For what seemed to be an eternity, I prayed, I begged, I wept. I thank my God till this day that He did not allow Satan to tempt me at this time. I say that because I'm not certain of what I would have given in exchange for my son's life. I now know for sure and certain that our God will not allow us to be tempted beyond that which we are able to bear. When I think about the word eternity today, I feel as though I do have some idea as to how very long that would seem to someone in hell, because that's exactly where I felt I was. Finally, after this eternity, or so at least it seemed, I heard the night watchman making his rounds through our barracks. As he passed my bunk, I whispered to him, asking him what time it was. He shined his flashlight on his watch and whispered back, "It's exactly midnight." 12 p.m. in Washington, D.C. That was the last thing I remember. It seemed the very next instant it was morning, and I was on a plane headed for California. My wife was to pick me up at San Francisco Airport. I arrived. My eyes searched frantically the front entrance at San Francisco Airport, and then, finally, I saw her coming in the front door. As I walked slowly towards her, my eyes searched hers, and I remember the feeling of dread for what she might say as to Keith's condition. For what seemed to me like forever, not one word was spoken. Finally, I broke the silence. I asked, and Keith, the most amazing look came on her face, and her words were, "An amazing thing happened last night at 9 o'clock. One minute there were as many doctors surrounding Keith as they could get around him, and suddenly at 9 o'clock he was perfectly well and whole." Keeping in mind that Keith had already died several times, they would bring him back, and then he would die again. As we headed off to Stanford University Hospital, I don't remember a word being spoken. I did, however, remember the deal that I had struck with my God. Please don't let my son die. Save my son, and I'll serve you all the days of my life. Of course, there is much more to the rest of this story, as Paul Harvey would say. But would you like to know the very most amazing part of all? It was almost 12 years later when I came across a story in the Bible. And that story is found in John 4:46 through 52. It reads as follows. So Jesus came again into Cana of Galilee, where he made the water wine. And there was a certain nobleman whose son was sick at Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus was come out of Judea into Galilee, he went unto him and besought him that he would come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Then said Jesus unto him, Except you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. The nobleman said unto him, Sir, come down, ere my child die. Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And the man believed the word that Jesus had spoken unto him, and went his way. And as he was now going down, his servants met him, and told him, saying, Thy son liveth. Then inquired he of them the hour when he began to amend. And they said unto him, Yesterday, at the 7th hour, the fever left him. So the man knew that it was at the same hour in the which Jesus said unto him, Thy son liveth, and himself believed, and his whole house. Just in case anyone who hears these words might have missed the similarity between this story and mine, let me provide a clue. At 12 midnight in Washington, D.C., a poor, tormented soul cried out to his God in agony and torment, cried out to the same God he had believed in since 7 years of age, this same God he loved as a child, but had ever so slowly drifted away from. The same faithful friend who I had so long ago almost forgotten about, he heard the cries of a lonely and a tormented soul. And in my greatest hour of need, he gave me the greatest peace I had ever known. I cried unto him, and he gave me rest. I called on his name, and he remembered me. This very same one who I had so joyfully sang praises unto and about, he remembered me. He heard my cry. I pray that you know of whom I speak. He is the true and faithful witness. He is the beginning and the end. To many, he is the Alpha and the Omega. But to tell only the truth, on that particular day, I knew none of those names. I knew only one name on that day. And that name, as I pray you have figured out by now, is Jesus. And if by some miracle you missed this, please let me conclude by mentioning that midnight in Washington, D.C. is exactly 9 p.m. in California. Why do I believe in God? Why do I trust God? I only pray that this true story will answer that question far better than I could ever put into words. God bless you, and thank you for listening.